So then guys, I've got the iPhone 16e and I want to test it against the likes of the iPhone 16 and the iPhone SE 3rd generation. And I thought, what better place than to take it into London, do some videos, take some pictures, and also do some benchmarks too. So let's go and test it out.
So just to let you know, the batteries are 100% on all three of these iPhones, but let's get started with the camera review. Now this is just a demonstration photo here for you guys. What we actually have is on the left we have the iPhone 16e, in the middle we have the iPhone 16, and on the right we have the iPhone SE 3rd generation. And this is how it's going to be for the photos, and let's start out there by going over to Big Ben to start with, and let's have a look then to see what zoom capability is like. So for the first sort of pictures here at initial sort of a one-time zoom capability, really first glance it does look a little bit neck and neck. What I would be saying is I can see slightly more detail. Say look at Big Ben there, look at the actual tower structure of it on the iPhone 16. I think it stands out just a little bit more there compared to the left and right. So obviously on the left we've got the E, and then on the right we've got the SE, where it's not as clear in my opinion. But the way how it's capturing the light like this, like so there is some shadow here, but you can see it's doing quite a good job here, all three. This is at the one-time zoom capability. So let's step it up a gear then. Let's go up to 2-time zoom. And in my opinion, this is where things start to really split out here. Just take a look at here. You can see that the middle picture here, that is the iPhone 16. It is the clearest of all. It's not overexposed, it's just perfect in the amount of light that is hitting that 48 megapixel lens. Now remember, we do have 48 megapixel on the 16e, but it's a different one to what we have on the iPhone 16. But you can see the difference, and even just look at the SE 3rd generation, well, you can see definitely a difference there, that obviously it's just not capturing enough light there with the quality and everything. But personally, if it was my choice, I'd say I like the iPhone 16 sort of photo in the middle, followed by the 16e. Then after that, I would be going for the SE. But let's go up though to maximum zoom and using digital zoom and see what that's like now. And to me, this is the biggest difference of them all. Just look at the iPhone 16 in the middle. It is standing out really nice there. It is beautiful how it's looking. That is how I remember how I saw Big Ben today when I did this. Whereas on the left side with the iPhone 16e, it's just not capturing the light enough here. Now, just in case you want to know, that isn't a cloud that's come over the sun here to make this darker. This was done literally around the same time. So yeah, this is really, really odd that obviously the 16e doesn't capture as much light, as it were, when it's fully zoomed up with its digital zoom capability. And then obviously on the last picture there, what we have is the iPhone SE 3rd generation. This is the maximum zoom you can go up to here on this actual camera on the SE. But personally, like I said, I think the 16 is definitely winning here with the camera. But the 16e, you know, it does do a fair job. But personally, what I would be saying is I wouldn't be pushing it up to all the way maximum digital zoom capability on this camera. But moving on from this then, let's have a look then, say if I use the rear cameras on the back of these phones to take a picture of me with Big Ben behind me and seeing what the difference is as we've got right here. So again, we can see that the iPhone 16, I would say personally, comes out in front here, especially for the face. But I would say that the 16e has probably captured the sky a little better here, in my opinion, there. But then obviously the iPhone SE, we've got some, you know, some sun glare coming in. Like I said, I've tried taking these pictures all at exactly the same position here. And you can see the difference, that definitely the 16 and the 16e is definitely ahead. But then after this, I decided to go back to where the London Eye was, did some selfies, as you can see right here. This is using the front-facing camera now this time, and you can actually see the difference again. I think it's very similar to like what we just had before. I think the iPhone 16 is a little better. I'm not trying to say the 16e is bad, not at all, but you can see the difference. And obviously the SE here on the right is not the best here with it. It's definitely showing its age here. And with this, I decided to stay with the front-facing camera, and let's go and take some videos now with this.
So this is on the iPhone 16e. This is what the camera looks like from a sort of selfie perspective, portrait kind of view. So it's quite good. It is a bit windy today, what's kind of perfect weather. But there we go, we've got like the Millennium Wheel, London Eye, whatever you want to call it, behind me here. So yeah, this is quite a clear picture. Let's now move over to the iPhone 16 and see how that looks. So this is now on the iPhone 16. You can see it's still a very good camera on the front here and everything if I move around. Obviously, like I said, there's the Millennium Wheel behind me, London Eye, what's right directly behind me. And let's now switch over to the iPhone SE and see what that's like. So the iPhone SE, this is actually at 1080p. We cannot actually go up to 4K on this, so quite interesting to know that. But still, 30 frames per second, it's okay, it does the job. But you can see here behind me with the London Eye, it's struggling with the light and everything. So there's definitely improvements on the selfie cameras, what we have on the 16 and also on the 16e.
But let's now do a video test then using the rear cameras and see how good the zoom capability is here. Now, the wind noise was so bad here today. It was really windy and it was capturing all the sounds, all the crackles. You could barely hear me, but let's have a look then. This is the iPhone 16e. Let me just pan around here. It does look very clear. We're at 4K, 60 frames per second here, zooming right up to maximum zoom, 6 times zoom capability here onto a capsule, what is really, really great. And just coming back to the 1-time zoom, and now let's zoom in then on the clock tower on Big Ben, and you can see here it's starting to get a little bit grainy here when you go fully zoomed in there. It looks like something from like an old camera from years ago. So yeah, just be aware of that. That's a bit better there. But let's switch over to the iPhone 16. Now on the iPhone 16, one thing that we do have is we do have the ultra wide lens what we can use. So let's just switch to that then and see how everything looks. That's us at ultra wide. So this is quite cool to actually have, but then we can go back to normal, as it were, the wide sensor. But what we can do, you can do exactly the same thing. We can zoom right in here on Big Ben. I'd say it's very similar, like being distorted when we're at that 6 times zoom capability here. But yeah, it is interesting that, yeah, you can definitely do this. Obviously, but it's a bit grainy as you can see if you go right up. I wouldn't say probably go more than 3 times zoom, but just to show you exactly the same here, what I did on the London Eye. If I zoom right in there, 6 times zoom, very similar to what we had with the iPhone 16e. But now let's move over to the iPhone SE. And we're at 4K, 60 frames per second here on the rear camera, but obviously the zoom capability cannot go as far as what we have with the other one. So you can see here, that is the maximum zoom we have, that is it. This is about a 2.5 times, 3 times zoom capability, I'd say maximum, but it's grainy, as you can see there. And then obviously if I just swing over here, over the Thames to the London Eye, the maximum we can go up to is this. And you can even see the quality is far less here. Now, just in case you want to know what the noise sounded like, this is why I didn't record any microphone, this is how it actually sounded.
So here we are on the iPhone 16e to begin with, and it is really windy here, guys. So let's see then what we can do.
So my apologies about this, that obviously I didn't manage to record the voice as it were, the microphones on this initial review here. But then soon after this, I hopped on a train, my 2-hour journey home with the iPhone 16e. Now what I did was I actually watched media for 30 minutes on each of these phones just to make sure here while I was on the train going home as it were. So yes, watched 30 minutes of media to help here with the battery test that we'll have a look in a second. But the moment I got home, it was dark, so I decided to do some nighttime photography. And yeah, you can see the difference here, definitely the one on the far right. But on the left, we do have the iPhone 16e. In the middle, we have the iPhone 16. Now, to me, for nighttime photography, these are neck and neck, I think. I cannot really see a difference between both of these. But look at the iPhone SE. Nighttime photography is just not an option here. It just doesn't work. You cannot get any detail out whatsoever. But one thing obviously I would say about nighttime photography, it does light up everything, to give you more textures, give you more detail. Whereas the iPhone SE, I would actually say, is probably what actually did look like outside. So yeah, it did actually look like that. Whereas the other two cameras more look like, obviously it's a nighttime photo. They've tried to make it in a kind of a dark sort of surrounding here. That's what we're actually getting on this one. And after that, I'm back at my desk. So what I want to do next of all with all of these iPhones, show again here, I've got the iPhone 16, the 16e, and then we've also got the 3rd generation iPhone SE. I want to do a load of benchmarks now on these phones to see what the difference is. And mainly I want to see, you know, the difference with this A18 inside of us compared to the iPhone 16. Now, really they are neck and neck with their A18, but the main sort of difference is that this actually only has a 4-core GPU, whereas this one here has a 5-core GPU. What's quite funny because the old iPhone SE, that also had a 4-core GPU inside it with the A15, and we're now like talking like 3 generations later. So it is going to be interesting to see here what we're going to get. So first of all then, let's have a look then at classic good old Geekbench and see what the scores that we got right here in this chart. So this was a little bit of a surprise for me for the iPhone 16 and the 16e, especially that, you know, technically the CPU element is exactly the same here. So the iPhone 16 scored 3,368 in single core, whereas the iPhone 16e was a little bit behind there. And you can even see the difference there in multi-core performance. They were a little bit behind, not by a huge amount, but I thought it would be bit more closer, if you get me. I thought the 16e would push over into the 8,000 barrier there, you know, maybe get 8,100 or 8,100 the lates or 8,200 earlies, maybe, but it hasn't done that. But you can see the difference here, what we're getting compared to the iPhone SE 3rd generation, obviously with that A15 chip inside it, single core, you know, this is far better. We're getting around about, say about 50%, just under 50% better speeds in single core. And then I would say, you know, very similar sort of story again. We're getting around about, say, a 50% kind of gain-ish compared to the 16, but it's the 16e just a little bit under that, maybe. And whilst I was still fiddling around in Geekbench, I decided to do the Geekbench GPU test. Now, the results here are very interesting too. And I think the most interesting thing I will say here is just look at how these stagger up from the iPhone SE 3rd to the 16. It's quite interesting to see that the actual sort of differences are quite similar. We're talking about a score of around about 4,000 in jumps here between all 3 models. Obviously the 16s to the SE 3rd gens are a little bit more there of a jump, but you can see there is definitely a difference here in GPU performance with the 16 and the 16e. That extra 5th core does make a difference here compared to the 16e, and obviously compared to the 3rd generation. I thought there would be a more advanced sort of jump here in Geekbench, but obviously not. But obviously Geekbench isn't everything. And that's why I did a 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme test on all of these phones too, to see if we got any differences in graphics here. What was quite interesting to see though is actually in the results here, look at the average frames per second we got on Wildlife Extreme. Well, look, it's, you know, it's 24 frames per second on the 16, 17.9, so almost 18 frames per second here on the iPhone 16e, and then the iPhone SE 3rd generation got 13.1. This was very similar to what we got on the Geekbench GPU sort of thing. That extra core really does make a difference, you know, with the iPhone 16. But the boost that we got from the iPhone SE 3rd gen to the 16e, and then from the 16e to the 16, they're around about the same kind of jumps there. Well, you know, I was not expecting to see this whatsoever. Now, I did do the 3D Mark Still Nomad Lite, but as you can see right here on the iPhone SE, you can't run this test. You have to have a minimum of 8 gigabytes. But just to show you here that obviously we did do the test, the iPhone 16 only got 11.5 frames per second, and the 16e only got 8.5 frames per second. This is probably going to be the more kind of standard kind of benchmark and 3D Mark we're going to do into the future now, because obviously Wildlife Extreme is not obviously the best. We got ray tracing and things like this in Still Nomad. So yeah, it was interesting to see the difference there again between the 4 and 5 core version of the A18. Now, something else what has made a difference is all to do with the NPU, the neural engine. So I decided to do a Geekbench test on this to see what the difference is that we're getting here. and this was fascinating to see. Just look at the iPhone 16 and the 16e, they have literally the identical NPU inside of it, the newer engine, you know, the 16 core version, it's exactly the same, but that iPhone SE third generation with the A15, you know, we are like about 100% less here. We are double what we got in the iPhone 16 and 16e of what we had in the iPhone SE, or more than double on the third generation. So yeah, it definitely makes a big difference here for AI capabilities and things like this, that this is going to help out for the 16 and also for the 16e. But then for the chipset, something else what I've decided to do is do a test really for, you know, testing out everything from graphics, RAM, you know, the NPU, and I think the best thing we can do for this is AnTuTu. So I ran this on all three of the phones, and let's have a look then at the final results that we got right here. So with the iPhone 16, having that extra graphics core has made a difference, a big difference. And to be honest, this is very similar to what we saw with the Geekbench GPU and the 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme as well. The differences that we got, so the way how it sort of staggers up, very similar here. So obviously the iPhone 16 is definitely way ahead here, and the iPhone 16e, I did think it would actually, you know, be further ahead than the iPhone SE third generation with the A15, especially, you know, this is a newer chip, newer process, everything. I was expecting that to be, you know, there's going to be a bigger gap here, and I didn't realize that the iPhone 16 would push out so far in front too. So yeah, this was super interesting to see here for the results. Now, something you might be saying is, well, a big part of that, Matt, for AnTuTu is probably also the storage speed as well. Maybe that made a difference. Well, that was quite interesting too, because I did a Jazz speed test on all three of these phones, and have a look at the results. The iPhone 16 and the 16e, I would say they have this exact same sort of storage NAND inside of them. It's exactly the same here. Look at this. The speeds of the sort of read speeds are 1660-ish, and then the same thing for the write speeds. We're talking about, say, 1465 on average. You can see here, if I ran these tests again, what I did do, this is the average of doing this test 3 times. This is what we got here. So, you know, if I kept on doing these tests, probably these would get even closer together. But the main difference, I would say, is just look how much faster we get now in NAND chips inside the 16e and the 16 compared to the iPhone SE third generation. You know, we are talking over double the amount, definitely in read speeds, and then for write speeds, we're talking like 3 times the amount. So yeah, this definitely makes a big difference right here. If you are going to be recording or, you know, pushing files onto your phones, this is going to make a big difference. And then finally, you guys are probably wanting to know, how hot do these phones get? And specifically, how hot does the iPhone 16e get? Well, what I did was I ran Wildlife Extreme and Unlimited mode, and on the 5th cycle, I decided to take the temperature. Now on my thermal camera, what you want to look at is the red crosshair. That gives us the maximum temperature. So we're getting around about 43 degrees here centigrade, I would say, you know, with the iPhone 16 running this test. Over to the iPhone 16e at the hottest point, you see the crosshair moving again, 45 degrees. So this is hotter, definitely, here on the iPhone 16. And remember, it's got less cores, less GPU cores inside of it. It's got 1 less, yet it's hotter. So that's interesting. And then the iPhone SE third generation, I'm just trying to get it, keeps dropping back to the other iPhone here. So let's just try that again, see a bit more closer. Let me just move those out of the way there. Let's try that again. So in total, we're getting sort of late 30s there, 39, 38. Oh, calibrating. Let's see it calibrate. 38. I'm going to go with 39 on this. Let's go with 39, I think, because we did have that for a second there. So yeah, 39 degrees. So let's put this all into a chart now. So with the iPhone 16 in degrees here, Celsius, we're getting 43 degrees there. iPhone 16e gets 45 degrees Celsius, and then iPhone SE third generation gets 39. Now obviously in Fahrenheit, this is 109, 113 and 102. So it's quite interesting to see that, even like I said, that the iPhone 16e has 1 less GPU core, and this is a GPU test what I did here with the Wildlife Extreme Unlimited, 5 runs on this. But yeah, as you can see, that it's definitely hotter. So the iPhone 16 definitely is a cooler phone here, and obviously has, you know, that extra core inside it. And the iPhone SE, obviously that was the coolest of them all, but obviously the clock speed's not being pushed as hard anymore and everything like that. Obviously this is an older process, so this is why, you know, probably the temperatures at its time for its speed were quite high, but even compared to today's standards, it actually is the coolest out of the three phones that we have right here. And then finally, after being in London for the day, going back, you know, with my commute, taking some nighttime photography, doing these benchmarks that you've just seen, what was the battery life like on all three of these phones at this stage? Well, let's take a look. Well, the iPhone 16 had 65% battery left after doing all of this. The iPhone 16e had 73% battery, and the iPhone SE 3rd generation had 44% battery left. So Apple's claim that the iPhone 16e and, you know, the 6.1-inch devices giving the best battery life ever, they were not wrong here. It definitely is ahead than what we got in the likes of the iPhone 16, and it is way out in front over the iPhone SE 3rd generation. Now, just in case you wanted to know, as you can see right here, all the battery healths were 100% on all three of the phones. Now, I will say that, you know, you can see the iPhone 16 has had 6 cycles, you know, with the count of charges. Really, it might make 0.2% battery difference, if that, you know, on this one. So we're talking nothing, but you get the idea here. Really, we can see that, you know, at the chart, that the iPhone 16e definitely does have the better battery life, and that is definitely to do with that C1 chip inside of it. So this video, obviously I wanted to get it out to you guys as soon as possible, as soon as I got my hands on the iPhone 16e, and I will be making a review very soon, giving you my honest opinion about the iPhone 16e, you know, what I actually think about the phone with using it. I'm going to do a 48-hour review with it, and obviously I will get that posted onto the channel as soon as possible, as soon as 48 hours is up. So I'm going to use this as my main driver for the next 2 days and see what Apple thinks, you know, why this phone is so special, or if it's not so special. So I'm going to give that a test out. So if you do want to check out that video, make sure you subscribe to this channel and also hit that notification bell. And also guys, it's time to wrap up the video too. So if you have enjoyed watching this one, please do press the like button. Until next time guys, I will see you really soon. Take care. Bye bye.